She spent 3 seasons running from her demons, from her grief, from her addiction, from herself. And in the very last episode, she finally stopped running. Not because she got clean, not because she found peace, but because the darkness found her first. Today we are breaking down the Euphoria Season 3 finale, the most brutal, the most emotional, the most controversial ending this show has ever delivered. And trust me, by the time we get to that final scene, you are going to feel it in your chest. So let's not waste any time, because Euphoria never did. Why this finale hits differently. 7 years. Let that sink in for a second. We first met Rue Bennett on June 16, 2019. A teenage girl fresh out of rehab, narrating her own story like someone who had already made peace with the fact that things might not work out. She was 17. She was brilliant. She was broken. And from the very first episode, this show dared to ask a question that most TV is too scared to touch. What if the girl doesn't get better? We stuck with Euphoria through everything. The behind-the-scenes chaos, the 2-year COVID delay, the reports of cast conflicts, production nightmares, and rewrites. We stuck with it even when Season 3 split the cast up for so long that it barely felt like the same show anymore. We stuck with it because somewhere, underneath all the glitter and the neon and the trauma, there was a story worth following. And now it's over. The feature-length finale, running almost an hour and a half through everything at the wall. Some of it was absolutely stunning television. Some of it landed flat. But taken as a whole, this ending is going to be discussed for years. So let's break it down, scene by scene, theme by theme, and figure out what Sam Levinson was actually trying to say. No flashback, no Rue. Right from the very first frame, this episode is different. And it does something that immediately tells you the safety net is gone. There is no childhood flashback, no slow, melancholy montage of a younger Rue, and most jarring of all, there is no narration, no Rue's voice, no world-weary poetic guidance through the chaos. We are completely on our own this time. Instead, we are thrown directly into the cold. Gia is asleep in a truck. Faye is screaming Wayne's name in absolute terror. And Rue, without a second of hesitation, grabs the nearest heavy object she can find, cracks it directly across Wayne's knee, and punches Faye square in the face before running for her life through a maze of underground tunnels. And this chase sequence is genuinely intense. Wayne, bone literally protruding from his shattered knee, is still chasing her. Firing a gun, missing like a cartoon villain. Harley appears on horseback, lassos Rue, and drags her back toward the farm. And then Gia, sweet, scared, overlooked little Gia, takes a shot from a distance that saves her sister's life. They escape. They have the drugs. They're laughing in the cab of a truck. And this is where the show plants its first knife. Because that feeling, that relief, that they made it moment, that's the first of several beautifully constructed false hopes this finale delivers. Rue thinks she has won. She thinks the nightmare is over. She has no idea it is just beginning. Alamo hands Rue the keys to her own destruction. This scene is one of the most quietly terrifying things this show has ever done. And it does it without a single raised voice. Rue brings Alamo back everything she stole from Lori's safe. Every last thing. She hands it over. And instead of anger, instead of punishment, Alamo smiles. He tells her she did a fantastic job, that he's proud of her. Pops a Percocet. Offers her one for the pain. Their deal is still intact, he says. She has a week off. He calls her his employee of the month. He hands her a thick stack of cash. And then he leaves the pill bottle with her. Now here's what you need to understand about this moment, because the show trusts you to catch it. Alamo already knows. Maddy told him about Rue's involvement with the DEA. This is not a reward. This is not kindness. This is a calculated execution. A man who built an empire on knowing exactly what people's weaknesses are, just left an addicted, exhausted, physically wrecked girl alone with a bottle of highly addictive opioids and a pile of cash. That's not generosity. That's a death sentence disguised as a gift. The truly devastating part, Rue doesn't see it. Because when you are that deep in the cycle, when your whole body is screaming in pain and someone hands you what feels like the solution, you don't look for the trap. You just reach for the bottle. The hoodie, the Bible, and the last quiet choice. Before we get to the moment itself, let's talk about a symbol that's been hiding in plain sight for 3 seasons. The maroon hoodie. Rue has worn that oversized hoodie since the very first episode. It belonged to her late father. She has said in multiple interviews and within the show itself that putting it on is the only time she ever truly feels safe. It is her security blanket, her connection to the one person whose absence created the original wound that everything else has been bleeding from ever since. When Rue puts it on in her final scene at Allie's house, that is not a wardrobe choice. That is a statement. She is returning to the version of herself that existed before all of this. The little girl who just wanted her dad back. She sits with Allie earlier that evening, and they have this heavy, philosophical conversation about evil, whether it lives in certain people permanently, or whether it is something that happens to people, whether some souls are just too far gone to save. Ollie's words hang in the air. He says them with the kind of weight that comes from a man who has lived inside that question for decades. And then Rue crashes on his couch. She reaches into her bag, she pulls out the bottle. Her Bible is playing in the background. The show does not tell you what she is thinking. It does not spell it out. It leaves that ambiguity deliberately. Was she just trying to manage the very real physical pain from the night's violence? Or was this surrender, the exhaustion finally winning? What we know is this: the choice she makes in that quiet lamplit room is her last one. And Euphoria has always been honest enough to know that sometimes, tragically, the final choice and the fatal choice are the same thing. Laurie's empire collapses, and she goes with it. While Rue makes her choice in that quiet room across town, Laurie's world is ending. The animals at the farm start screaming first. That's a classic horror film signal. Animals know. And sure enough, the federal raid descends on Laurie's operation like a hammer. Now, I want to be honest here. This part of the finale is probably the weakest link. Wayne and Faye's escape feels a little too neat, a little too quick. They ride right past the incoming agents like something out of a cartoon. Harley and Bruce, after a moment of considering a shootout, just give up. Years of build-up and their ending is a shrug. But then comes the moment that actually works. Laurie's standing on her roof, surrounded, knowing exactly what is waiting for her on the other side of a federal conviction, very calmly mutters to herself, she is never going to jail. And she jumps. There is something both deeply horrifying and deeply in character about that exit. Laurie was always the calmest, most monotone, most calculated presence in this world. Her soft voice and her maternal warmth were always the scariest things about her. And in the end, she controls her exit the same way she controlled everything else. Quietly, deliberately, and entirely on her own terms. The twist that follows is genuinely clever. Alamo had already switched the drug trucks. And Eddie, erratic, strange Eddie, turns out to have been a DEA informant the whole time. Whether that was a long con or a desperate deal made after getting shot, the show leaves ambiguous. But it recontextualizes everything about his behavior in those final episodes. The empire is gone, but the man who truly ran it? He's still sitting in his club, smiling, completely untouched. The most devastating television of the year. Okay, this is the one. It is morning. Rue wakes up, or at least we think she does. She watches a news report about Faye escaping from custody using parkour. And because this is Euphoria, we almost believe it for a second. That's the show's genius. It has trained us to accept the absurd. She puts on the hoodie. She grabs her keys. She is going to pick up Faye. And then the sequence begins. And it is beautiful. And it is heartbreaking. And if you were not paying close attention, you might have missed what was actually happening until the very last moment. As Rue drives through her old neighborhood, we see flashes. A younger Rue, the first time she ever saw Jules. A quiet, sun-drenched, deleted scene-style memory of Rue and Faye just sitting in a yard, laughing, doing absolutely nothing of consequence. The kind of moment that, in reality, is the most precious kind. The police are chasing her. She runs. She ends up back at her childhood home. her father's hoodie on her shoulders. The hallway is warm and golden, and exactly how she would remember it. Her mother is there, reading the Bible. They embrace. And then, her father. And then the show cuts back to Allie's couch, and the illusion shatters completely. Everything we just watched, the car, the chase, the warmth, the reunion, none of it happened. It was a hallucination. A beautiful, merciful, heartbreaking hallucination that Rue's brain gave her in her final minutes because the alternative was too cold and too dark and too alone. Rue Bennett died of a fentanyl overdose on a couch in Allie's living room, surrounded by silence, while her mind showed her the thing she wanted most: to go home. I need to also say this, because it would be dishonest not to. It is impossible to watch this sequence without feeling the shadow of Angus Cloud, the actor who played Fez, Rue's best friend, her protector, died in July 2023 from an accidental drug overdose at the age of 25. The fact that the show ends with Rue finding her way to a peaceful field, reuniting with the people she loved, finding the rest she never found in life, it feels like more than a story choice. It feels like Sam Levinson, in the only language he knows, trying to say something about the people addiction takes, about the narrowness of the margin between surviving and not, about Angus. And it lands. When faith breaks and a soldier is born. Allie wakes up. He tries to rouse Rue, and in an instant, he knows. What follows is one of the rawest performances in the entire run of this show. A man who devoted his second life entirely to keeping young people alive, falling to his knees, kissing her forehead, saying goodbye, and writing her name into his worn book of the dead. That book. Think about what that book represents. Every name in it is someone Allie tried to hold on to. Every name is a wound. And now Rue is in it. He tests the leftover pills. They are laced with fentanyl, far beyond what anyone would survive. This was not an accident. This was Alamo, knowing exactly what he was doing, choosing to use Rue's disease as the weapon. Allie calls Leslie. He makes the phone call no parent is supposed to receive. The show doesn't show us that conversation. It doesn't need to. We know what it sounds like. Months pass. We find Allie now going by his birth name, Martin, at his final Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and his speech is haunting. He has lost his faith, not just in God, but in the system, in the meetings, in the idea that guidance and prayer and presence are enough when dealers are literally putting poison in pills and handing them to sick people. Christian, Muslim, suddenly I found myself not believing in anything. He announces this is his last meeting. He is done trying to save kids within a broken structure. He is going to handle this a different way. And when we see him at home, modifying a shotgun, we understand exactly what that means. This is one of the most interesting character arcs in the finale, and maybe in the whole season, because Allie was the moral anchor of the show. He was the proof that redemption was possible. And watching that faith get dismantled piece by piece by a system that just keeps grinding up people like Rue, it says something true and dark and important about what happens to the people who care the most when the world keeps proving them wrong. Tarantino comes to Euphoria, and the devil gets what he deserves. If the finale has one scene that is pure, unapologetic genre cinema, it is this one. Martin arrives at the Silver Slipper in full tactical gear. He bypasses Kitty and her fresh plastic surgery. He holds G at gunpoint, screaming for Alamo to show himself. G confirms what Martin already knows. Rue overdosed on Alamo's supply. G makes a sudden movement. Martin shoots him. No hesitation. The soldier is back. Alamo retaliates by hurling a bull skull through the glass, genuinely unhinged, and grabs Maddy as a human shield. He retrieves his sidearm from Bishop, and we get a classic Mexican standoff. Martin tells Alamo he was sent as a messenger of vengeance for Rue. Alamo, who has never stopped believing he is the smartest person in any room, smirks. He has Kitty bring over champagne. He takes a drink. He rolls the empty bottle across the bar. When it hits the floor, they both fire. Alamo's gun clicks. Empty chamber. Bishop had already emptied the magazine. The one man Alamo trusted completely, the one man who clearly developed a genuine conscience somewhere along the way, maybe in that quiet conversation with Maddy about getting a dog, had already made his choice. Martin doesn't hesitate. One shot. It's over. Bishop looks at Martin and says simply, "May God have mercy," and Martin walks out into the night. There's something almost classical about this ending for Alamo. The man who built his entire empire on psychological manipulation, on knowing people's weaknesses, and using them as weapons, was ultimately undone by the one thing he never accounted for: genuine human decency growing in someone he thought he owned. She is free. Where everyone ends up, and what it means. Jules gets a brief, bittersweet coda, alone in her studio, painting a massive portrait of Rue, a quiet, tender memory captured in oil. It's a beautiful image, but it's also a reminder that Jules' storyline this season was frustratingly thin, almost certainly a casualty of the real-world scheduling chaos that kept the cast fragmented for so long. She deserved more. The show knows it. Cassie and Lexi take very different paths. Cassie has partnered with Maddy to run some kind of business out of the enormous empty mansion Nate left behind. She tries to bring Lexi in to write promotional content. Lexi, quiet, perceptive, the most grounded person in this entire world, is sitting in the corner reading Rue's Bible. She refuses, and she walks away, toward Hollywood, toward writing, toward herself. Cassie's final shot is brilliant and devastating. She stands alone under a single harsh theatrical spotlight in the center of that enormous empty room, surrounded by absolute darkness. The camera slowly pulls back. The spotlight stays on her. The emptiness grows. She spent her entire life desperate to be seen, and the show ends by showing us exactly what that looks like from the outside. Not glamorous, not triumphant, just a person, illuminated and isolated in an enormous room with no one in it. And then Martin. He travels to the rural homestead Rue always talked about. He tells her family she is gone. They invite him inside for dinner. He bows his head to pray over the food. And when he looks up, Rue is there, sitting at the table, healthy, radiant, smiling back at him, like she finally found the peace she was always chasing. The camera pulls back to the quiet landscape. The curtain comes down. Goodbye, Euphoria. A flawed, messy, essential piece of television. Look, Euphoria Season 3 was not perfect television, not even close. The production delays were brutal. The cast spent too much time separated. Labyrinth's iconic score, which gave Season 1 and 2 their emotional spine, was noticeably absent, and that void was felt in almost every quiet scene. Some storylines, Wayne and Faye chief among them, ended without the weight they deserved. Jules was underserved. The pacing was uneven. But here's what this finale did that matters. It was honest. It didn't give Rue a redemption arc wrapped in a bow. It didn't let addiction become a story about survival and triumph. It let the show be what it has always been, a brutal, clear-eyed look at what the disease actually does to people, and to the people who love them. Cassie is a mirror for everyone who chased clout over connection. Maddy is proof that you can survive a world that was never designed for you. Martin is a portrait of what grief and righteousness look like when the system gives you no other option. And Rue? Rue is one of the most complex, most painful, most human characters in the history of modern television. Her story didn't end the way we hoped, but it ended the way this show always promised it might. And there is a kind of integrity in that. The final image, that empty chair at the table, that vision of her smiling in the golden light, is not a happy ending, but it is a peaceful one. And maybe, for Rue Bennett, after everything she carried, that's exactly what she needed. So what do you think? Did Rue's ending feel true to the character, or did it feel like a choice the show made too easily? Is Martin a hero, or just another cycle of violence? And what does Cassie's final spotlight shot say about where we are as a culture right now? Drop it in the comments.